Alright, hello, welcome back to the podcast once again, everybody. If anybody wants to support me, PayPal and Patreon links are both down below. Only do so if you actually can. And obvious tremendous thanks to anybody who does. So, as would be inevitably expected, China's population is starting to taper off now, starting to level out. They're a bit above 1.4 billion, just above 1.41, with the remainder of this decade basically being the final window of any additional increase. As usually it's about a 40-year lag between when a country either hits or goes below the roughly 2.1 birth rate that maintains a replacement level population. Usually it's about a 40-year gap between when a country either hits that level or goes below it. After about 40 years is when it starts leveling off, and China reached and went below the 2.1 level right around 1990 or so. So obviously 40 years from that is about 2030. Now they've been gradually slowing down a bit ahead of the 40-year mark because of the added impacts of constant emigration, as a lot of people constantly do move out and away from China. So those numbers also add their own weight, sort of pulling their population curve down. But from this point and beyond, they should basically stay in a loose level off like this and then decrease a bit gradually up until probably later during the 2030s, around 2040, and then up through the 2040s and 2050s, as that is when the largest portion of their aging population will begin to pass away. As if you take a look again at their birth rate over time, you can see that it had actually increased up to a large peak back around 1970 or so, and then plummeted off massively after that. So the huge number of people born during that big upsurge in birth rate obviously would pass away between ages 60 to 80 or so. So simply looking forward in time based on life expectancy, many of them will begin to pass during the 2030s, but the larger bulk during the 2040s or so would basically follow that gradually flat, sharp drop for a brief decade and a half or so, and then level off again pattern. Now, obviously, as with many countries, this has raised some concern, with many remarking with really unfounded surprise that shouldn't be there, that China's population is about to inevitably start decreasing, and that there are a lot more old people than there are young people. That shouldn't be a surprise. That was kind of the point of the one-child and then two-child policy. That's the whole point. Your population finally stopping growing and leveling off is kind of the point of attempting to stop your population from growing and level your population off. So I'm a bit at a loss as for why anyone's acting surprised over this, because this was kind of the goal, as even globally in total we're approaching around 8 billion by this point. We'll be there sometime early next year, I believe, and we really need to get that under control. But economic-based complaints usually come up around this time frame about how the decade or two during which there is a huge old population and a really small young population is going to cause some economic hardship and turmoil. Well, for one, literally everything causes economic hardship and turmoil. For two, you need to get over it and get past that mental hurdle of make GDP line go up. That's not the goal anymore, and it can't be the goal anymore. Yes, it's going to be difficult taking care of a huge number of old people for a couple of decades. However, that's it. You have to do it. It's inevitable. You don't get to want something, start trying to get to that thing, and then stop trying to get to that thing to complain about the difficult segments of the pathway to that thing. This is part of the pathway to a much more stable population and to an inevitably necessary, gradually, slowly, mind you, I emphasize that, slowly contracting population. But you don't get to stop walking along the path and sit down and pout and demand aversion without the difficult parts of the path. You, in the collective sense of the word you have to endure and just push and persevere through it. Now, I know some people are obviously going to misinterpret this. No, I'm not some kind of mass population reductionist. I'm not advocating for absurdly collapsed birth rates like those of Taiwan and South Korea. They're like around 1. Also, birth rates fluctuate no matter what within given ranges anyways. So my quote-unquote stamp of approval is a fluctuation range maintained between like 1.9 and 2.3, which China could, or at least at the moment seems to be, really gradually climbing its way back up towards, as they hit their sort of absolute low point in birth rate of about 1.6 back during the 90s. And since then, they have really gradually crept their way back up to about 1.7. And in regard to demand levels and consumption, China's consumption and demand levels of everything are going to continue to grow inevitably regardless over at least still the immediate future. However, their explosive growth of demand should begin to slow down a bit in the immediate next few years coming on, as the people born back during the high birth rate times, even as they were coming down, like during the 70s and the 80s, in the next number of years, will be aging beyond sort of, I guess what you could call the active age brackets, in a way as with what you saw in Japan, which inevitably actually made their demand levels of various things decrease over time. But China still has first world living standards to spread to many more millions of its people, so that's still going to be going up regardless. But it will likely be slowing down as all of those mass numbers of people will be aging out of the activity age bracket, since as people, regardless of country, in general obviously stop working, and thus a huge part of their traveling and mobility drops. And in general, beyond that, the older they continue to get, the less and less they go around, the less stuff they do, the less stuff in general they buy also. So that effect should also begin to gradually become visible in terms of Chinese demand levels soon. Granted, again, it's not going to stop them and drop them like it did with Japan, but it is going to slow down the otherwise explosive growth that China has been going through in literally everything since basically the start of the 21st century. And that's it for this one. So thank you everybody for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. You can support me through PayPal, Patreon if you want. Only do so if you actually can. You can also subscribe to my cat's channel. She has her own channel, and if she actually gets to 1,000 subs, then her channel can get monetized. And obviously a second channel with ad revenue would really help. But that's it. So regardless of what happens to me, may God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.